How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Coach Mike and OB podcast. We got a lot of exciting topics for you guys. I know we took a couple of weeks off because of Thanksgiving and the holidays and whatnot. So it's been a while since we've had a podcast. So we're going to touch on a lot of things. Player updates when it comes to injuries. COVID protocols. Crazy winning streaks going on. New signings with players, 10-day contracts, everything like that. So we're going to get started here. First topic, we want to talk about LeBron. LeBron's kind of been, he's had a tough season so far. He's been injured a handful of games, and the Lakers really aren't performing as they would like. And some things on the court that were happening with him, got in a big fight, almost started Mouse at the Palace too with Isaiah Stewart. And he's just been, LeBron has just kind of been in a rut. I mean, he's been injured and then he took some games off. The team is not gelling how he'd like to. I think there's some frustrations in that sense. Obracto, what do you think of this whole LeBron controversy right now?
Well, I know we were not around for the LeBron fight against Isaiah Stewart. We had taken that week off, and then last week we had technical difficulties when we tried to record this podcast.
Right.
Audio wasn't recording. So as we talked about last week when we tried to record this, I had in the past with the Jokic-Morris fight sided with Jokic, saying that he needed to stand up for himself and be that person. And, I agreed with his suspensions and everything like that. And it's going to go the same way with Isaiah Stewart and LeBron James. I think Isaiah Stewart took it too far. You watch that video in slow motion. I don't care how many times or how fast it was. It's completely intentional on LeBron James. He lost his composure. He squared up to Isaiah Stewart before his elbow and arm even moved in Isaiah Stewart's direction. Guarantee it was probably just a, hey man, free throw went in. I back off me, stop pushing. Isaiah Stewart plays hard. And I don't think he meant to cause Isaiah Stewart to bleed, to clip him in the face like that. But, intention, whether you intend for that to happen or not, you have to take the consequences of throwing that arm.
Yeah.
And Isaiah Stewart should have, he chest bumped LeBron right afterwards. That's fine. The second he started charging after them, that's when it starts getting too far. I'm glad that no one got hurt beyond just like the 5 to 10 stitches, I think is what it was on his Isaiah Stewart's face. I'm glad there was no repercussions. I'm glad Mouse at the Palace 2 didn't happen because that would not have ended well.
No.
Again, I'm glad everything ended up being calm. But I think whatever when the situation happened, we were talking about it. I was clearly under the impression that whatever LeBron got, Isaiah Stewart needed one more game suspension for his increase of the escalation of the situation. Whereas if he didn't escalate it, if he had just chest bumped him and then they walked him off the court, I think he should have he wouldn't have gotten fined, no suspension. LeBron would have gotten a 1-game suspension for throwing a cheap shot and causing him to bleed. And I think that's where it would have ended from there.
Yeah. I think the whole situation itself was a combination of things, right, OB? It was a combination of LeBron being frustrated with how the season's going.
Oh, yeah.
Him taking some time off. And, he felt that Stewart was being a little aggressive. And we saw the video. I mean, that was completely 100% intentional. We never see that out of LeBron James. We look at LeBron as kind of like the person that people look up to when they look into the NBA most of the time.
Of the league.
He's the face of the league. Exactly.
You can't let some 20-year-old who's playing with his heart in his sleeve, who is getting minutes because of how he plays and how hard he plays. You can't let that push you over the edge and to swing your arm. And obviously he says it was unintentional. it was definitely intentional that he swung the arm. Like
100%.
you can't go, oh my bad, I didn't mean to swing my arm. No, you definitely meant to swing your arm.
Yeah, he meant to swing his arm 100%. And I think with the suspensions, like we were talking about, I mean, like I said, LeBron got off one game. Isaiah Stewart, I think he got
2 games.
2 games, and then he got fined pretty heavily. So I mean, the whole situation was just a combination of things like really boiling up and then finally just coming out, you know. And
Yeah.
this is not like LeBron James. He's never really been like ejected. I think he, like I said, like I mentioned, I think he got ejected maybe like one other time.
Career ejection.
His second career ejection. I think the first one he got was when he was with Cleveland, and it was like it was a pretty intense game or whatever the case may be. But it was kind of, I don't know. LeBron is, like you said, he's the face of the NBA. So for him to do things like that, and then him taking games off, trying to gel still with like all of his senior citizens. I mean, it's going to take some time, man. I mean, but right now, I mean, they've been chugging along pretty decently. So I mean, they're getting the groove back. When all three of them play together, they're not bad. But I mean, going back to like, I was watching Charles Barkley and Shaq and all these guys after some of these interviews, and they're talking about Anthony Davis, and not steer away from the LeBron situation, but Anthony Davis needs to be more aggressive. But that's a conversation for other times. But no, and then there was another incident, OB, with the Pacers, right?
There was an incident with the Pacers.
Yeah, you went an incident with the Pacers. He was calling out that fan that was sitting courtside, and he tattled on her, and he's like, "That's her, that's her, that's her," and then got her and her boyfriend or whoever the guy was ejected. So it's just kind of been a couple of things. LeBron's been kind of whiny lately.
I was watching after that situation too. I was watching Skip and Shannon, and Shannon alluded that it was something that he wouldn't say it, but it was so offensive. And I had heard through the grapevine, reading reports that it was about Bronny. So, I mean, if you're LeBron James and you're having some drunk ass fan for like shouting at you about your kid, he didn't really get into that with them. He just went, "Hey, this is unacceptable to the ref. I want them gone." Would anybody other player get that treatment and get a fan ejected for that? No, but it's not the end of the world. It's just drama. It's not. If it was something that offensive towards Bronny and LeBron took that much offense to it, I'm not going to be like, wow, that's like it's a dick move, but it's not the end of the world.
Right. Yeah. I mean, LeBron and a lot of all-stars in this league get special treatment sometimes, but LeBron gets them out of the most. Let's just say that. Moving on, let's jump on to another topic. Switching over to the East, some big signings that we've kind of been seeing rolling out, with both the East and the West. But one big one that I saw was, the Bucks signing DeMarcus Cousins, and they also signed Wesley Matthews, but we could talk about him in a minute. They signed DeMarcus Cousins, and we know how DeMarcus has been. He's been an up and down player with injuries, with locker room troubles, coaches troubles. I mean, you name it, the guy has every problem. And, at one point in the league when, the development of centers was really coming about, probably like around 2014, the prototypical best centers in the league were at the time Anthony Davis and DeMarcus Cousins. And at one point, which is hilarious because they were both on New Orleans together, and it didn't work out. So there's that could tell you something right there. But DeMarcus Cousins signing with the Bucks is huge. I mean, Brock, to touch on that a little bit, what do you think about the signing of DeMarcus Cousins to the Bucks? You think it's a good thing? You think it's a bad thing? You think it's going to help him? You think it's going to hurt him? What do you think?
Well, with the indefinite, with Brook Lopez being out indefinitely, DeMarcus Cousins is a great pickup for them. He's not, again, you said he's not the player he once was. But he can still definitely stretch the floor. He can hit up those shots. He's just a great all-around bench player that has a lot of experience being in the playoffs. And he has grown as a player too. He's lost a lot of weight, and I really think that he will help the team kind of stretch out the floor so Giannis can keep driving to the basket, can keep pushing the defense. And I don't think he's really going to be that much of a hindrance on defense himself. He'll still be that big body that he can still stand in the paint and he can just put his hands up and he'll deter shots.
Yeah, I think with adding Boogie, I think that it's actually a good thing, to be honest with you, because like you said, Lopez is out, and he has the ability to stretch the floor. He can shoot just as good as Lopez. Maybe not as percentages and as there as it used to be, but DeMarcus Cousins can hit the shot. And he's kind of a guy that once Giannis comes off the bench, he's a guy that you can kind of throw the ball into and say, go to work, like it gives them way more versatile. They're way more versatile as a team. And, a lot of things that people don't talk about is Boogie's defense. People look at DeMarcus Cousins, they say, oh, he's not really a good defender. Well, that's not true. Actually, he's a very good defender. He might not be your prototypical shot blocking defender, but at one point in the league, he led big man in taking charges. So he knows how to get in position and take charges. So I think his defense, honestly, like if he might be a little bit, not better than Lopez, but he's really can help that team. And he's kind of just trying to get his feet back, because he's been injured and this and that. So being with a championship team like the Bucks and not being that guy that they need to be like, okay, you need to just get numbers. You need to put points for us. He can kind of just play within the system and be the player that he is. And he can kind of do his thing. So I think that I agree with you. I think he's a great pickup for the Bucks. I just hope that, A, he stays healthy, and B, he just doesn't form any problems. We've seen him have a short temper with things. But another signing is Wesley Matthews. So Wesley Matthews, at his time when he was with the Mavs, he was one of the best two-way players in the league. I would say one of the best, not two-way, one of the best 3-and-D players in the league. He's one of those guys that can, he'll shoot the three, he'll throw that bow and arrow, and then, he'll play some defense. He'll guard the best guy. So he's kind of like a Danny Green a little bit, but not as good. Danny Green and him are probably the same right now because they're a little older veterans, but yeah, he's, Wesley Matthews is a good pickup. And he's already been with Milwaukee before they released him or he left to go to the Lakers and the Lakers released him or whatever the case may be. So he's back. He knows the system. He knows, he loves Milwaukee. They love him. And once again, this adds another shooter at Brogdon. When you add another shooter, the Bucks are deadly. And there's a reason why they won the championship last year. There was a lot of talk going around saying, oh, you can't win with Giannis not being able to shoot. You can't win with just a typical big man. Well, then they clearly proved that wrong. So yes, Giannis isn't the greatest shooter. He's developing his shooting, but when Giannis drives, think of the guys that he has, OB. He's got Wesley Matthews. He's got Pat Connaughton. He's got Chris Middleton. He's got Drew Holiday. He's got DeMarcus Cousins now. They got a lot of guys that can Grayson Allen. They got a lot of guys that you can give the ball into and they can really shoot. And if those guys don't suck in, Giannis is scoring every time. So overall, I think those two pickups are both great for coming off the bench. It adds to their bench and it also adds to their veteran presence to be kind of around. So overall, great pickups by the Bucks once again. They have a great coach, man. Yep. They really, really do.
You still have Dante DiVincenzo. He's going to be coming back soon. He just got into his first G League game the other day.
Nice.
So I'm excited. They're looking like they're going to be starting to hit their stride. They had a really slow start to the season. Obviously, with Brook Lopez being out, and then Chris Middleton was out with, I think he was with the COVID protocol, correct?
Middleton, yes, he was.
So, and then
Giannis
had his calf issue with his calf for a couple games, and I think they just kind of really needed to hit their stride, and they're starting to hit it. And with Dante coming back, I think they're going to really find their success coming forward.
Yeah, and then also keep in mind Drew Holiday was out for a little bit. Keep in mind the Bucks started out like under 500 because it was just Giannis pulling the weight. And you see how much of an impact and how crucial they need Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday. That's the big three there, man. And when they're playing together and clicking on all cylinders, they're deadly. They're probably the best. They are the best team in the East besides the Bulls. But whatever. But cool. We talked about the Bucks. That's great. So moving on, we're going to shift over to the West now. Big things have been happening in the West. You've seen it, OB. There's two dominant teams right now, and it's the Golden State Warriors and it's the Suns. From a record perspective, they're shattering everybody in the West. One of those teams, the Phoenix Suns, recently went on an 18-game winning streak. Obrakta,
Yep.
they started out 1-2 to start the season.
Mhm.
And from there, they won 18 straight games. That's insane. They think they were up for like the quickest or the most streak of wins for Phoenix history or something like that. I don't remember what it was, but touch on that a little bit, because I think that is huge success for them, especially with them losing in the finals last year. I really think they needed that confidence and signing Chris Paul.
I think so. And they lost in the finals in 6 games. They kind of really fell apart because they went up 2-0 and then lost 4 in a row.
Yep, exactly.
So I think, there was a lot of questions in the offseason. Where is Devon Booker? Is he going to be able to be the scorer on this team and lead them? Is DeAndre Ayton going to be able to be that big man for them? Is Chris Paul wavering? Is he still going to be effective? He's getting up there in age now.
37.
And we've been hearing that ever since he got his massive extension way back in Houston. Every year it was like, he's another year older. Next season, another year older, and he's going to be being paid $40 million now. 50, like, it's ridiculous. And we've been hearing it nonstop about Chris Paul. Then you had the owner, the controversy with the owner about, possibly having like racial ties, yada yada, all that nonsense. And there was a lot of distractions. And when they went down 1-2 in the first 3 games, a lot of people probably were thinking, this is probably it for them. They didn't extend DeAndre Ayton, and I think Chris Paul really took offense to that. And now they've just been, and then they just went off. And I think they're a team that's trying to prove that, we made it to the finals last year, and we're going to do it again. And we're going to show everyone that we're not on the back burner, that it wasn't just because LeBron was hurt last year that we beat the Lakers. It's not because the Golden State Warriors were weaker and we were able to just kind of trounce through the West. A lot of people probably, myself included, went, the Bucks and the Suns, if there was any year for them to win the championship, last year was their year.
Absolutely.
And Chris Paul, I feel like, really missed his chance last year to finally get that championship ring. But watching them this year, man, they were just hitting on all cylinders after that small like backfire of a startup. And I think they have a real good shot at making it to the finals again, especially with the Lakers faltering the way that they've been. We'll see with Klay Thompson coming back, but they're 1-1 with the Warriors right now. And I would take Chris Paul and Devin Booker over Steph and Draymond at this point. I think they have a better all-around team, because the second that Steph Curry stops hitting his shots and the three's not falling for them, it's going to be difficult for them to keep up with everyone else.
I mean, yeah, they say it all the time. We know this as players. You live by the 3, you die by the 3. So I mean, the Golden State Warriors have proven that is incorrect because they've won 3 championships. But I mean, you're right. When they're off, they're off. When they're on, they're on. This winning streak to me, OB, it's a couple things, right? It's a couple things. One, signing Chris Paul that extension. Obviously, like you said, he's 37 years old. He's getting up there in age, but he's like fine wine, man. The older he gets, the better he gets. I mean, he's not the quickest guy he used to be anymore, but he's very deceptive. He's an extremely high IQ. I would say he has the highest IQ right now in the NBA, probably next to LeBron James. He's got an extremely high IQ. He knows when to pass it, when to take the shots, when to find open guys. And like, he's a great Robin to Devin Booker. And another thing too, that we're really underrating here is that DeAndre Ayton has been playing out of his mind. And I think it's because he's pissed off he didn't get that extension that he deserves. And I think after this streak, the Suns are going to really consider it. I mean, even though they gave Chris Paul that money and that extension, I mean, they can move some things around and see what's up. But DeAndre Ayton's playing out of his mind. He's right now, he's a top 5 big man in the league. I mean, he's actually like a prototypical big man. He's not like a guy that can really hit a three. He can hit like a, like a 15 footer, 10 footer, like for a jump shot. But that's a big reason why as well. So he's been playing out of his mind. Devin Booker's been doing his thing. I know he's I don't know if he's back from his injury, but he tweaked his hip, or it was his thigh, something like that. He tweaked something, but he should be back soon. But give it up for that bench too. I know I kind of ripped on him a little bit in our earlier episode, but JaVale McGee and Landry Shamet are great pickups for them. Landry Shamet has a lot of experience becoming that 3-and-D guy, essentially coming off the bench when he was in Brooklyn. You got JaVale McGee with championship experience, gold medal experience. I mean, He's a really long guy that can really get some shots and really clog that paint for you. And then they got Jay Crowder, great veteran who can, he's kind of like the guy, like if anybody messes with the team, he's kind of like that, the enforcer essentially, right? So you got him, who's a great spot up 3-point shooter, another good 3-and-D guy. I mean, they got some great assets there. And I think that they are off to a phenomenal start. This winning streak. I mean, yeah, they lost to Golden State, but keep in mind, Golden State, after they beat the Suns and, destroyed their 18-game winning streak, the Golden State Warriors were on their own. They're on an 11-game winning streak after that. So those two teams right now are very top tier, and they're not even at full strength, which is scary.
Yep.
You look at a lot of teams in the West that aren't at full strength either. You look at the Nuggets. They've really been struggling with Jokic being in and out, and no Jamal Murray as well, and no Michael Porter Jr., who they signed a max extension to, and now he's out for the whole season. So it's like, okay, well, but overall, I think the Suns are making great moves. I think they have a great organization, a great fan base, and I think that they're just going to keep going up. I think signing that extension with Chris Paul is one of the best decisions that he's made, because Chris Paul, he bounces around.
Oh, yeah.
He's with OKC, he was with the Rockets. Now he's kind of found a home in the Suns, and I'm hoping that he can. He finally made it to the finals. We're talking about Chris Paul. He's never made it to the finals. He's been really close. Finally made it to the finals, and he lost, but he did everything he could. He played really well, and
I think the big question with the Suns is, are they going to be able to keep Chris Paul healthy until the finals or until the playoffs even? Because we all know about his hamstring issues that he gets.
Right.
And Devin Booker now has the hamstring issue, and there's no timetable on him. I just looked it up while you were talking there. So no timetable for Devin Booker to come back. So hopefully Chris Paul can stay healthy, and maybe we'll see a great Phoenix team just stomp through the West again. And
yeah, I think you're right.
Hopefully we'll have a great, Western Conference Finals. It might go back to being Western Conference Finals being the actual finals of Golden State and Phoenix, because man, they are just firing on all cylinders. 21-4 right now for Golden State, and 20-4 for Phoenix Suns.
Oh my Lord. That's insane. They're doing great, and I like the Suns and I like Golden State. So I hope they keep doing well, but don't underestimate the West. They can pop up any moment. Last thing I want to say is, you're talking about Chris Paul's hamstring. You're talking about how they're going to manage his minutes. I think they're going to manage his minutes really well. Monty Williams knows what he's doing. Mm-hmm. And also I think that with Cameron Payne getting his, he had signed a 10-day contract with them in the beginning, and then he was a big impact in that final. And they finally Cameron Payne finally got the contract he got. So he's a great backup point guard for Chris Paul. So that's good. Moving on, let's stay in the West a little bit. Let's go back to talking about the Lakers. With the Lakers, they were on a 3-game winning streak when the big three are together. I think it was a 3 or 4-game winning streak when him, Russell Westbrook, and Anthony and AD are together. They were doing great, and then they played the Grizzlies. I watched a little bit of that game, Obrakta. From what I saw, keep in mind the Grizzlies don't have John Morant still; he's out.
Yep.
But they got not Devin Booker, Dillon Brooks. Dillon Brooks is phenomenal. He's extremely underrated, and he's a great point guard. He could probably be a starting point guard for a lot of teams in this league, to be honest with you. Okay. And he has shown significant improvement. The Grizzlies are grinding. They're going back to the old school Grizzlies where they were like with Marc Gasol and Zach Randolph. Yep. They're grinding it out, and they're playing tough, man. And John Morant being out, we see this mentality all the time, next man up. But, after watching that game, and Lakers, literally the Lakers got beat because of hustle. They got out hustled by them. And also when I was watching the Lakers and the Celtics game, the Lakers actually won, but the beginning of that Lakers Celtics game, saw smart dive on the floor and get the ball off straight hustle, and LeBron didn't even move. So sometimes when, I always say this as a coach, if you're pretty evenly matched with the team, if you out hustle and play defense, you'll win majority of the time. So
even if they're better than you,
exactly,
hustle and heart make up for a lot.
Oh yeah, it makes up for talent sometimes. I agree with you, but overall, like that what did you think of that Lakers Grizzlies game? I mean, the Lakers looked like they were really getting some stride, O'Brocta. They really looked like they were getting some momentum. And then the Grizzlies were like, no, not going to happen. What do you think about that?
Well, and this is classic Lakers.
Yes.
They show up to the big games, and then, like they did with Oklahoma City and even with Detroit, when they were down, 12, 14 points before LeBron got ejected, and they rallied back behind LeBron's ejection. Again, with, the Grizzlies here, they started off, I got the scoreboard up. They started off 29-5, and then they lost 10 in the second quarter, came out in halftime, almost tied it up. Like they lost by 1 point. So they were only down like 6 points going into the fourth, and then they ended up losing by almost 12 points, 13 points.
Yep.
You're right. I didn't watch the game, but I was watching the highlights last night, and there was a moment, it just baffled me, where I want to say, I don't know who drove on the Lakers to the basket, but they were on the ground. It was a 5-on-4 back, Grizzlies to Lakers, and whoever it was on the wing got the ball in the Grizzlies, and he just walked to the basket.
Really?
No one came up to stop him. I literally had to rewind it 3 times just to watch. I want to say it was AD just got boxed out by someone half his size, and no one made any move except for Carmelo after the guy already like went for the layup. I'm like, what did I just watch? I almost
watched a bunch of old guys not hustling. That's what you watched.
I was gonna have an edge. So I'm like, this is the best you can do right now with LeBron
no
on
effort.
the floor. Like it was, I was baffled. I couldn't believe it. The effort that the Lakers are putting out against these teams, it needs to get better, because they're a geriatric ward. But they're a bunch of Hall of Famers. They know how to play basketball.
They should at this point, O'Brocta. They've
been professionals, most of them, for at least 15 years. So
you got 3 Hall of Famers on that team. 3 Hall of Famers on that team, O'Brocta. If not more, correct. If not more. Russell Westbrook, LeBron, AD, and Carmelo and Dwight Howard. You got they're veterans, whatever. But going back to it, I really think it comes back to LeBron cannot be the main guy, O'Brocta, on that team. It has to be Anthony Davis. And Anthony Davis needs to be Batman, and LeBron needs to be Robin. But he's not that guy. He doesn't have that killer instinct. Charles Barkley said it perfectly on TNT. He's like, AD needs to be the main guy. He doesn't have the killer instinct. He doesn't. So until he gets that, until AD says, listen, this is my team, everybody get behind me. And then LeBron will be like, I'll help however I can. But LeBron cannot be your main guy. He's not that guy anymore. We know that. So you're right. Watching that game was very frustrating, only because of the lack of hustle, the lack of effort. And keep in mind, you look at the Lakers, they are losing to teams that are worse than them because they're getting out hustled by the younger guys. You look at the Rockets, you look at OKC, you look at the Grizzlies. These are young teams that are just, like I mentioned earlier, they're playing defense and they're out hustling teams. And if you do that in the NBA, these are professional athletes. Keep in mind, O'Brocta. Mm-hmm. Okay. If you out hustle someone and you play defense, these younger teams are outworking the Lakers. And I really feel for the young guys on that team. I really feel for Malik Monk. He should have went to another team, and I think he's going to. Not Chris Dunn. God, what's his name? He was on the Lakers, the lefty. Kendrick Nunn. He's on there, and he's been injured. He hasn't even played yet, but he's young. He shouldn't be on that team either. So the Lakers better win it this year, or else they're going to have to rebuild after that. I mean, they're going to have to, Brock. I don't know what they're going to do.
I know I've seen people call for Anthony Davis needs to be traded. Westbrook has been an absolute flop. He was negative 16 yesterday.
AD needs to go
with
to
9 points. Talon Horton Tucker, they spent all this money on him and got let
Yeah,
go of
he's great young talent. I
Caruso
forgot
and
about
didn't
him.
go for Buddy Hield. He's been very hit or miss this season. LeBron came back and he got 20 points. Anthony Davis had 22. But if you're looking at like LeBron James teams that were successful with their big three, when it was LeBron, Wade, and Bosh, they were scoring between the three of them 70 points a night. When it was LeBron, Kyrie, and Kevin Love, they were scoring 60 points a night. And these guys, they're scoring maybe 50 if they're lucky. And LeBron James teams went the super teams. They were never successful, and they always lost if they scored less than 60 points as a trio. And LeBron doesn't have it to be able to get them there anymore.
Yeah, he doesn't have it. We saw that in the finals. He lost the first time he lost in the first round ever.
Yep. And the turnovers for the Lakers has just been absolutely horrendous.
Well, you know what that's before. You know what that's because of. It's because of Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook averages, I think, one game he had like 9 turnovers himself. Like, he is a turnover machine. He is. A lot of it is from Russell Westbrook. I guarantee you that.
I mean, Westbrook is averaging about 4.5 turnovers a game right now.
What?
Yep.
That's so many. Obrakta, do you realize how much that is? As a professional? Come on. Who's averaging the most? That's what I want to know.
I looked it up earlier and I don't remember. But LeBron also had 5 turnovers last night too. So it's not just
Westbrook. It's a combination. It's a combination. Yeah, of course. But Russell Westbrook is the point guard. And as the point guard, you got to minimize your turnovers. The ball's in your hand majority of the time. He needs to be not turning the ball
LeBron's over. Averaging 3.5 turnovers a game. That's unacceptable for him.
Of course. It's unacceptable for any of those guys, any of those all-stars. If you're an all-star, you should be averaging less than 2 turnovers a game. I'm sorry.
Although that's pretty much his average.
Brutal.
3.5 to 4.2 turnovers is his average. That's still a lot.
That's a lot.
Compared to his assists, he's down on assists. He's only at 7 when he just 2 years ago was averaging 10 assists to 4 turnovers, where he's at 7 assists to about 3.5 turnovers.
Yeah. Well, hopefully up and up for the Lakers moving forward. All right. Last topic we're going to touch on, OB, to finish out this podcast. We're going to go back to the East. We're going to touch on our favorite team, which is the Bulls. The Bulls, we've seen them kind of hit a stop lately. Not because of performance, not because of any of those things. It's just players injured, and COVID protocol has really set the team back. They've won a couple games. Actually, I think who did they beat? They beat
the Knicks and the Nets back to back.
Nets, yes, they beat the Knicks and the Nets without some of those guys, and they really showed. So right now you got Lonzo Ball, you got Zach LaVine, and you got Vukovic. Good, but DeMar DeRozan being out, I mean, he got Eastern Conference Player of the Month. I mean, he's averaging 30 points a game, averaging the most points in the NBA right now, and he's out for the Bulls because of COVID protocols. Then let's go down the line. So you got Alex Caruso, leads the league in steals. He's got a hamstring injury. He's out. Javonte Green, health and safety protocols. He's out. DeMar DeRozan, health and safety protocols. He's out. Kobe White, health and safety protocols. He's out. So the Bulls have turned to signing guys. They've recently signed Stanley Johnson, which when he was with Detroit, he was doing really well. I think he was a starter at one point, and then he went to Toronto, and he put up some numbers there. And then the Bulls actually had him on the roster, and then they released him. And now they brought him back, which I thought was a bad decision. So I'm glad that and then they got Alfonso Kenny, or whatever his name is. They just signed a 10-day contract for him. He came from Golden State. He really did a phenomenal job when Steph and Clay were first out. He got some really good numbers. So, switching it over to you, OB, what do you think about all this going on with the Bulls? Give me your
after that Knicks game, I think was Kobe out for that one. I think
he was
already, but then
he might have been.
I think Kobe was already out.
Yeah,
and then after the Knicks game, I don't remember which two, but I know two players on the Knicks, went under health and safety protocol.
Oh yeah, that was RJ. I think it was RJ Barrett. Um,
Uh, anyway, the
doesn't
two
matter.
players went on safety protocol, and I just
They were
went.
missing a lot of guys. They were
I
missing
just
guys too.
I just went. All right, well, I was just waiting for it, and then one by one, like DeMar went out, and then we had now five. We had 5 people. Now we have 7 players out with health and safety protocol.
Something like that. Something like that. It's
So
ridiculous. And then
I
injuries
knew
don't
as
help.
soon as the Knicks played the Knicks, and then the next day health and safety protocols came out against the Knicks. I knew at least 3 people were going to go down for the Bulls, and unfortunately it was more. And I hope everyone is safe and gets healthy, but they pulled a really great win against the Nets without DeMar, and they were able to. Lonzo came back and hit that 3 to win the game. Tony Bradley played great. Javonte Green played great. Caruso went out that game with the hamstring.
Yeah, I think me and you were watching the game and we saw him start. He was questionable to play, and then he started, and then actually
disappeared.
Was that against Brooklyn? It was against the Knicks, or it was against Brooklyn. Yeah. So we're watching it and we're like, Caruso's not at the bench. Well, he pushed it with his hamstring and now he's done for the day. So done for the game. So
So it's gonna go into their bag of tricks, and the Bulls have a really good history of getting into these veteran, small forward, point guard players. It's classic when Derrick Rose was out. We found Alfonso the Third. We found Nate Robinson, Duwamba. Like, we had all these great one and done players. Aaron Brooks. I think the Bulls are going to be just fine. They have great talent of picking up people from like the G League or like the veteran roster list. It's going to be tough not having your best scorer, in my opinion, with DeMar not being there, and he's still a great defender. But I think they're going to be just fine. I think they'll take the brunt of this stint. They're still up right now. We're 1 game behind the Nets at 17. They're half a game behind the Nets, 17-9 to 17-8. So I think they're doing just fine. It's still early. We're only a quarter of the way. We're just over a quarter of the way through the season. And I think the Bulls will get a bounce back once everyone's healthy and able to come back to the court and play.
Yeah, and I think we've seen this in the league, and unfortunately, I said the Bulls pretty hard. This mentality of next man up, and the Bulls have shown that when somebody leaves, the next man up is coming, and for that, it's Ayo DeSumo. I mean, he's
been out of his mind.
Oh my God, he started the other day, and Billy Donovan says it, and I bring this up all the time on here. He's got the it factor. He's not afraid of the spotlight. So Ayo has been doing a great job on both ends of the floor. So good to the point where, we're looking at Kobe, we're looking at Patrick Williams, and we're thinking we got a good chance this year. We trade them for some veteran guys, and I think that recently the Pacers came out and they said that they're open to trade Miles Turner, Sabonis, and Karis LeVert, which are 3 of their top guys, and they're willing to trade them to start slowly rebuilding. And I really think the Bulls need to jump on that, Obrakta. I really do. I think the Bulls should trade Kobe White and Patrick Williams and get Sabonis. He's an all-star big man, prototypical big man. He's phenomenal. If you got him or Miles Turner out of it, that's a win in my book for those 2 young guys. And I think that the Kobe White and Patrick Williams are great assets to give up. But here's the thing. You're taking a chance. The Bulls have a great chance to make it to the finals this year, I think, if they stay healthy. And if they add one more, and we keep saying this, they add one more big man piece, I think that will complete the puzzle. And I think that if they do that, they're going to be successful. So, which is crazy to me, Brockton, that the Pacers are even thinking that. Yeah, the Pacers are not bad. Their record doesn't reflect how good they are, but you got Miles Turner, you got Sabonis, you got some pretty good guys in Indiana. And for them to just say, you know what, we're not seeing the season and the progression that we'd like to see. We're going to get rid of some big guys and rebuild. I mean, good for their management to do that, but I think it's a smart move for the Pacers. No way. They got some really good players. I think they could really make a push. They're a sleeper team. I think they're a top 2 sleeper team in the East.
Listen, so right now they're 13th in the East with a 12-16 record. They are barely under. They're just over 40%. To put it in comparison, they are better than the 11th seed Portland Trailblazers in the West, and they are just under the Sacramento Kings at the 10th
I think
seed.
They're jumping the gun. They really do, Obrakta. They're jumping the gun.
They've been playing really well.
Yeah, they're not bad. And they got that great rookie. And they got that good rookie right now.
And the teams they lose to, they're only losing by like 10 points, if not less. Like, it's not like they're getting blown out in these games.
No.
So I think they, if they want to give them up, I'll gladly take some bonus.
I'll take some bonus. And I'll take some bonus or Miles Turner. They're both really great big men. That could be probably a better asset on a better team. But I think that, I think Pacers just throw the towel in. They're saying we need to rebuild. We need to rebuild around our rookie. We need to rebuild around Malcolm Brogdon, whatever they want to build around. I don't know why, but they're like a mid-level team. We see this in the league a lot, right, OB? We see these mid-level teams. They're like, they're not like all veterans like the Lakers, but they're not all really young like the Rockets. They're kind of like in the middle, and some of them are all-stars, and some of them are good, and some of them has potential. And it's kind of like you're taking a risk, right? You're in that middle section, and you're like, do we keep the progression of the team that we're going? But I think they're jumping the gun way too early. I think the Pacers are going to really flip the switch on after the All-Star break. So we'll see. But I mean, if they get a good offer with some young talent, they'll take it. And the biggest young talent combination that they're going to want Kobe White, and they're going to want Patrick Williams for sure. Do I think the Bulls should give them up? Maybe give up one of them, but you're not going to get one of them for those top all-stars. You're going to have to give up both of them. And if the Bulls decide to do that, which I've trusted management since the beginning of the season with the moves that they've made, and if management says, I think we got a good chance to win it this year, let's make a push, then I think that's a great idea. If they think we're only hitting our stride here, let's keep with the young guys. But it looks pretty promising because Patrick Williams out for the whole year, and Kobe White has had his troubles, and now he's out with COVID shit. And the only reason they're thinking that is because Io is doing phenomenal.
Yep. It's a good problem to have when you can't fit Kobe White back into the lineup, because Io is a gold mine second round pick.
I totally agree with you. Oh yeah. And I was looking at, I saw something come out. I don't know if it was Bleacher Report or something, but they were saying like, I'd assume he's a top 10 rookie in the league. Top 10? No, Brock, he's the top 5 rookie in the league right now.
I would say top 5.
The top what?
I would say top 5.
Yeah. The way he's been playing as a second rounder. Oh my God, he's been doing a phenomenal job.
Expectations out of the way.
He really is. So, but the Bulls are gonna next man up. We'll see when they're fully healthy. Obrakta, they're scary, and they're beating teams without their full roster. How many games have the Bulls had this year with every single person available?
Probably like 15.
Yeah,
they probably played about 10 games, if like 5 to 10 games without everybody.
Right. Yeah. But the Bulls are a great team. We love them, and they're doing a great job. But so yeah, overall we touched on a lot of things this podcast. We want to apologize to our followers and friends for not getting an episode out to you guys as soon as possible. But we tried to cover as much as we could. But overall, this concludes the episode 4 of Coach Mike and OB podcast.
Yep. All right. Last thing, big game for tonight: Celtics versus Suns. Who's going to win that one?
I'm gonna go on a limb here. I'm gonna go with the Celtics, only because they got their butts handed to them by the Lakers. I really think they're gonna have a bounce back win, and I think Tatum's gonna step it up. And this, I don't know who their center is. I forget his name, but that dude can fly. So I'm going with the Celtics. What about you?
I was gonna go Suns. I thought we were gonna agree and have obviously the Suns. No, all right. Well, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, everyone. Enjoy the Celtics Suns game. Well, by this point, it won't be that, but everyone have a good night. Enjoy your basketball, and we'll see you next time.
Have a good one.
Thank you for watching this episode of Coach Mike and OB. Full episodes of this podcast will be released every Monday, and segments such as this will be released every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Please leave a comment, like, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.